probably know, storytelling is such an important part of Indigenous culture. It's how we've preserved our history, our teachings, and our identity through generations. But colonization disrupted that. Stories were taken from us and rewritten to fit a narrative that served others, not us. And Missing Matoaka is an act of that reclamation. And it's about taking back that story and telling it in a way that honors Matoaka and who she was, what she endured, and what her true legacy should be. So I see it as a continuing of a tradition that has been central to my people for centuries. So I guess let's talk about representation. So right now there's more Indigenous content being created than ever before. Honestly, we could probably thank social media for that, which is exciting, but there's still so much work to do. For a long time, Indigenous characters were either stereotypes or completely erased from the narrative. So with Missing Matoaka, we wanted to do the opposite. So to create a story told by Indigenous people, which we can talk about more in a little bit, but the entire team was Indigenous on this project, so that was pretty cool, with an Indigenous perspective, and for everyone to understand what's been missing. Authentic representation isn't just about accuracy, it's about respect, empowerment, and restoring balance. And it's not just about movies or TV shows, right? So Indigenous voices, they need to be heard across all areas of society: business, education, policy, and the arts. Projects like Missing Matoaka are part of a much larger movement of Indigenous people reclaiming their narratives and their spaces. There are so many inspiring examples of Indigenous-led businesses and initiatives redefining how the world sees us. And these aren't just stories of survival, they're actually stories of thriving, which is something I'm really passionate about. Obviously, the story of Pocahontas and Matoaka is a pretty tragic story, but that's not where all Indigenous stories end, right? We still exist today, and we still have lives where we want to celebrate our stories of survival and are thriving in our lives today. So there's so many inspiring examples, like I said. And one thing I'd love to dive into is the story of, obviously, Matoaka herself. You guys just watched the film. It's quite different than the original that you probably have seen before by Disney. And obviously the woman many people know as Pocahontas, it's very different. She wasn't the romanticized figure from Disney's Pocahontas. She was a child who was kidnapped, manipulated, and used as a political pawn. Her story has been distorted to justify colonization for years and years and years. And by telling her true story, we're not just setting the record straight, we're asking people to reckon with history and its ongoing impact. This isn't just about the past, right? It's about how these narratives shape perceptions of Indigenous people still today. And so when we talk about Indigenous people, society still holds a lot of stereotypes. Some see us as relics of the past, others romanticize or tokenize us, but there's a shift that is happening, and I think Missing Matoaka is part of that. Indigenous artists and activists and leaders are challenging those perceptions and reclaiming visibility. And education is key, right, to breaking down these stereotypes. That's where all of you come in. Learning, questioning, and amplifying Indigenous voices can create real change. So you ask, how can you help? And honestly, first, educate yourselves. And clearly, you're on your way to doing that, so great. Learn the true history of Indigenous peoples and cultures, not just the sanitized version from textbooks. Support Indigenous creators, businesses, and movements. Speak up when you see stereotypes or misrepresentations. And most importantly, listen, right? So when Indigenous people share their stories, believe them, amplify those voices instead of speaking over them. And I'm really grateful. I'm really happy that you all got to experience Missing Matoaka, and I got this chance to share with you. I hope it's obviously sparked some curiosity and maybe even inspired you to think about the power of stories in a new way. Obviously, I'd love to hear your thoughts or questions about Missing Matoaka, and I'd be happy to share about my creative process and how this project came about if that's of interest. I have a lot to say about all of that and how it came to be. So I think we can just open it up to conversation.